Here's why Criston Cole turned on Rhaenyra during the Green Coup. What if I told you that one of the most brutal betrayals in Westeros history wasn't driven by political ambition or loyalty to the realm, but by something far more dangerous, a man's fragile ego? Buckle up, because we're about to dissect how Criston Cole went from Rhaenyra's sworn protector to her most venomous enemy. And trust me, this descent into villainy is messier than a red wedding reception. Before we dive into this twisted tale of rejection and revenge, do me a favor and smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because here at Westeros Throne, we're serving up the spiciest takes on everything Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. Now, let us begin. Picture this. You're a knight from a minor house in the Dornish Marches, basically the medieval equivalent of growing up in a nowhere town with zero prospects. Your family crest probably looks like it was drawn by a drunk septon, and your castle is more like a fortified shed. Then one day, boom, you win a tournament and catch the eye of the realm's most eligible princess. Suddenly, you're not just any knight. You're the personal bodyguard to the heir to the Iron Throne. You've hit the Westerosi lottery, my friends. This is Criston Cole's origin story, and honestly, it started off pretty wholesome. He was living his best life, protecting Rhaenyra Targaryen, being all chivalrous and honorable. But here's where things get spicy, because Criston made the catastrophic mistake of mixing business with pleasure. Now, let us talk about what really happened between these two. Rhaenyra and Criston became intimate, and depending on which version of the story you believe, either she seduced him or it was mutual. Either way, our boy Criston broke the biggest vow a Kingsguard can break. These guys literally take an oath of celibacy. They're supposed to be married to their duty, not sneaking around with princesses. But Criston did it anyway, and here is where his internal crisis begins. This man's entire identity was built on being honorable, being a knight of the Kingsguard, wearing that white cloak like it meant something. And now he has violated the one thing that gave his life meaning. So what does Criston do? He comes up with a brilliant plan. Just kidding. It was absolutely delusional. He asks Rhaenyra to run away with him to Essos, to abandon her claim to the throne, her family, her entire destiny, so they can live in some cottage selling oranges or whatever people do in Essos. Let me put this in perspective. This would be like asking the CEO of a Fortune 500 company to quit and move to a remote island because you had a fling. Rhaenyra obviously says no, because she's not about to throw away the Iron Throne for a guilt-ridden knight with a savior complex. And this, right here, this rejection, is where Criston Cole's villain origin story truly begins. But wait, it gets worse. Rhaenyra does not just reject him. She basically tells him they can keep their arrangement going, no strings attached. To her, it was probably a reasonable compromise. To Criston, it was the ultimate insult. In his mind, she reduced him from a noble knight to a glorified booty call. His honor was already shattered, and now his pride was crushed into dust. This man went from feeling like a romantic hero to feeling like a disposable plaything, and his ego simply could not handle it. So he did what emotionally immature men have done throughout history. He turned his hurt feelings into seething, all-consuming hatred. Now here's where the psychology gets really interesting. Criston could not just hate Rhaenyra quietly. That would require self-awareness and emotional maturity, two things this man clearly left back in Dorne. Instead, he needed to justify his hatred to make himself the victim in this story. So he rewrites the narrative in his head. Suddenly, Rhaenyra is not the woman who elevated him from obscurity and then had a complicated relationship with him. No. She is a seductress, a whore, a stain on the honor of the realm. He transforms his personal rejection into a righteous crusade. Classic projection, if you ask me. And then Alicent Hightower enters the picture, and oh boy, does she enter at exactly the right moment. Alicent is dealing with her own resentment toward Rhaenyra. These two were best friends until Rhaenyra's father married Alicent, creating the most awkward family dynamic in Westeros history. Alicent feels betrayed, used, and overshadowed. She is raising sons who should be kings in her mind, but the realm is stuck on this whole Rhaenyra is the heir situation. So when Criston starts spilling his bitter tea about Rhaenyra's moral failings, Alicent is all ears. These two form an alliance built entirely on mutual resentment. And let me tell you, nothing bonds people quite like shared hatred. Criston becomes Alicent's champion, her sworn sword, her attack dog. He transfers all his devotion from Rhaenyra to Alicent, because this man apparently needs a woman to define his entire existence. But here is the kicker. His service to Alicent is not really about loyalty. It is about revenge. Every time he praises Alicent's sons, every time he sneers at Rhaenyra's children, every time he pushes the green agenda, he is really just stabbing at Rhaenyra. This is a man who cannot move on, who cannot process rejection like a functional adult. So he turns his emotional damage into political warfare. Let us talk about those rumors Criston helped spread about Rhaenyra's children. This man went full scorched earth. He whispered poison into every ear that would listen, suggesting that Rhaenyra's sons were bastards, that she was unfit to rule, that she was everything wrong with the realm. And the darkest part? He probably convinced himself he was doing the honorable thing, protecting the realm from a corrupt princess. But really, he was just a jilted lover with a sword and a grudge, weaponizing his bitterness into propaganda. When the Green Coup finally happens, when King Viserys dies and Alicent moves to crown Aegon instead of Rhaenyra, guess who is right there at the center of it all? Our boy Criston Cole, now Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. This man went from breaking his vows for Rhaenyra to orchestrating the theft of her throne. The irony is thicker than the walls of the Red Keep. He crowns Aegon. He helps hunt down anyone loyal to Rhaenyra. He becomes the face of the Green faction's military might. All because a princess said no to running away with him years ago. Think about the butterfly effect here. If Criston had just gone to therapy, if he had processed his feelings like a mature adult, if he had accepted the rejection and moved on, the Dance of the Dragons might never have happened. Thousands of people died because this man could not handle being turned down. That is not heroic. That is not even particularly clever villainy. That is just sad, pathetic, and infuriating all at once. But here is what makes Criston Cole such a fascinating character. He never sees himself as the villain. In his mind, he is still the honorable knight, still the hero of his own story. He has convinced himself that everything he does is righteous, that his crusade against Rhaenyra is about protecting the realm and upholding traditional values. The cognitive dissonance is absolutely staggering. This is a man who broke his sacred vows, murdered people in cold blood, and helped plunge the realm into civil war, but he still gets to sleep at night thinking he is one of the good guys. The tragedy of Ser Criston Cole is not that he loved Rhaenyra and lost her. The tragedy is that he never actually loved her at all. He loved the idea of her, the fantasy he built in his head, the validation she provided. When the real Rhaenyra did not match his fantasy, when she made choices that did not center him, he turned on her with the fury of an entitled man who thought he deserved more. And that, more than any political scheming or military strategy, is what makes him so dangerous. So there you have it, the twisted psychological journey of how Ser Criston Cole became one of the most hated figures in Westerosi history. A man whose wounded pride literally reshaped the fate of an entire dynasty. Next time someone tells you hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, remind them about Ser Criston Cole, because apparently rejected men with swords can be pretty terrifying.